Hello and welcome to Chat DPS. Seems to be a recurring theme. We're talking about Optus and the 000 again, except it's not just Optus in the frame this time. All of the carriers seem to be being hauled off down to Canberra to do a please explain and try and understand exactly what's been going on. A report from ABC last evening on the news at 7:30 report stating that these calls that weren't getting through to 000 it started a long way before, or at least 2 weeks before the time slot that's been attributed to Optus. So we've seen Vodafone go, we're seeing Telstra go down, and Optus. Obviously not an MVNO play, but anyway, TPG I think are in that mix as well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see exactly what's going to come out of this. So all of these senior execs are converging upon, or telco execs are converging upon Canberra, Robert. What's the position you think that's really saying? Because there seems to me to be some more deep-seated problem than just, people can't get through on Optus, yeah?
Yeah. So I think we touched on it maybe last week because there was a bit of media noise about Telstra in WA. So they had an outage which affected some triple zero calls. This 7:30 report on the ABC, they interviewed three people who also talked about having issues with 000, which were outside of the major Optus outage. So I think as we touched on this, I think the other week, this is broader than just Optus. This is about the resilience of the 000 system, and so it was interesting. So the ABC have done a little bit of digging. They spoke to some experts. They've talked to Optus. Optus have said with these three people that the ABC interviewed, Optus has said it's not a network thing. It's not a technical fault. They're going to look into the root cause of this. So it's something separate. It's something to do with the broader resilience of the system. So that's the view of the experts. I mean, it's quite interesting. So it's just one of those things where, look, you don't know exactly what's going on, but, they talked about, well, look, it could be the age of the phone that somebody's using. It could be congestion on the network. It could be some other outage somewhere at a tower or whatever it might be. So there's all sorts of things that might be going on. But clearly, it's, as I say, coming back to there's a broader problem which involves all of the telcos. And like you say, there has been in-person meetings, there's been conversations, and it's not just about Optus and them getting hauled over the coals, but it's a much broader discussion with all of the telcos in Canberra about how do we improve resilience for the 000 system? How do we improve resilience for our telco network, particularly when, and I think this is the big concern, we're starting to move towards summer. I think we almost skip spring. And of course, summer brings storms, fires, and
Yeah, of
that's when
course.
you really need to rely on your 000 systems. So what we've seen is a little bit of action from the government in reaction to what's happened in the last few weeks, and at the same time, we're seeing a little bit of heat on the government as well. Because as I've touched on before, there was a
Yeah.
report that was issued around, I think, March or April 2024 out of the 2023 Optus outage. 18 recommendations were made, and we've started to see a little bit of blowback for the government from the media, but also from the opposition politicians, the independents, saying, "What have you been doing, Labor, for the last 18 months since that report came out?"
Yeah, so there's a number, isn't there? So you've got 18 recommendations, of which how many have actually been enacted upon?
Okay, so there was a time today, and I saw some of the exchanges that were occurring. So the minister Annika Wiles got quite a few questions, not surprisingly, around the outage. One of and around what has the government been doing for the last
Yeah.
18 months? You've been sitting on this report, and her response was 13 of the 18 recommendations have been implemented. And of course, that then begs the question, well, if that's the case, how well have they been implemented? How well have they been embedded and tested? And what happened when we had this major Optus outage? Because clearly, it didn't. Whatever has been implemented, according to the minister, has had no effect on the resilience of the network. So I think there needs to be a much deeper dive into what has been implemented, and of the
Yeah.
five that haven't been, which ones have not been implemented yet, and when will they be implemented? So they put this draft bill before Parliament now, which they'll want to get made into law by the end of the year. Again, there's been lots of complaints about this again because I think there's like 3 sitting weeks left. So the opposition, the independents, are saying that's not a lot of time to get this through. I mean, clearly it's necessary. I'd also say that the government is focused on a custodian. So that's one of the recommendations. You have this custodian of the 000 network who essentially would, I guess, coordinate all of the telcos, work with them to improve the resilience. And then there's a whole bunch of other recommendations. I think I said before, I think there's 8 which are just related to the 000 network itself.
Yeah.
That custodian would take on that role of ensuring, proper implementation, testing, and all that sort of thing to make sure that the resilience is improved. And I think the not only is there a motivation of there's only three sitting weeks of Parliament, there's that motivation of we're coming into summer season. And I think if there was another major outage between now and going into summer, I think there'll be
Yeah.
extreme pressure on the government about what the heck are you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, people don't want to see things failing. Not when it's critical like this. I mean, 000. I mean, the telcos have really got to get their heads together, put egos aside, and actually
Mm,
sit down and actually work out how to provide this important universal service. Right? It's
that's
it's
right.
it's fundamental. I mean, as I think the lady on the news last evening said, this is a fundamental service. It really is.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah. So, look, I wanted to move on to another thing, which is probably more in line with where we've been coming from for a little while now, and that's the found out through a couple of news reports. I think it was in the Fin Review, one of them, which was around Deloitte using AI to charge the government $442,000 for a report that was run through ChatGPT or the like. We're not too sure, but 442,000 taxpayer, sort of value for money. I'm not sure that I'm feeling the love on that one. And what's the story behind here? I mean, this has got distastefulness spread all over it, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, distasteful, and it's just embarrassing, isn't it, for Deloitte?
Yeah,
The fact that you could that somebody has used generative AI, LLMs to do analysis, and it's being passed because I mean you know how these things work. You get a junior to do the initial drafting, it works its way up through a couple of levels, gets signed off by a partner, gets handed over to the client. So it's gone through a couple of layers of review, and nobody has picked this up. And so it's embarrassing on a whole series of levels. I mean, it's embarrassing that I mean the media report is that Deloitte have offered to pay back part of the fee. And I also understand from the reporting that they rewrote the report and submitted it over the weekend. I mean, if I was that government department, a couple of things, I'd be asking for a full refund. I'd also be putting that report in the bin because I can't trust the analysis and the accuracy of that report now. I'd be going to another consultancy or whoever it might be and saying, can you just start from scratch, please? And can you not use generative AI in producing that report? So yeah, so at a high level, that is there's not the right way of doing things. But look, I think there are a number of lessons that can be learned from this.
yeah. So it's like, how's that, isn't it? I mean, not being funny or anything, but I mean, quite a lot of the references that we're using were actually generated you know, through AI, which of course we all know doesn't actually tell us the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth the whole of the
Mm.
time.
Yeah.
And some of those references were scurrilous, to say the least,
Hmm.
and non-existent for maybe not real. So, I mean, how far do you trust people when you're actually paying them $442,000 to write a report that's sort of there? Was there I mean, do we know? I mean, Deloitte's got a policy. Do they have, around AI? Do we know what that policy would be? I mean, this is where it's going to become fundamental because this is where we're in the Wild West at this moment in time. Nobody seems to know what the rules of engagement are, so therefore we'll make
Hmm.
up our own as we go, and we'll throw in a few false premises.
Yeah, and look, I mean, obviously we have to speculate, but yeah. So this comes back to governance. You have to have an AI framework. You have to have an AI policy, procedures. You need training of the staff in terms of how you use this. What tasks do you use AI on? How do you validate what the output is. So you might use it for, I don't know, drafting an email or transcribing a meeting, but you probably shouldn't be using for doing analysis that you're going to pass on to a client. That's what the human brain should be used for. So yeah, I think you'd expect Deloitte to have an AI policy. Was it followed in this case? Who knows? Probably not. But clearly, there was a lack of disclosure as well in terms of how it moved through the different layers of review before it went to the government. And then, as I said, you've got to pick the right task. So you would hope that either through the policy or the procedures, it would say you can use AI on these tasks, but don't use it for things like analysis on a report. So you'd have to kind of question that. And then I think you have to be transparent. So whether that's in your policy or in
Yeah.
your sort of disclosure or qualifications in the report, you should be saying, this report has been supported with AI. It's been used just in, drafting, I don't know, an executive summary, say. So, and that's all. So, but you're transparent about it. So, but you can say, but, the humans signing off on this have actually used their thinking power to do the analysis and come up with the recommendations. But we've used AI to summarize some of these things, not to do the critical thinking. So there's a question of transparency that you need to think about. I think though. I mean, they seem like pretty basic common sense lessons, but you actually
Yeah,
need
I
to be,
suppose
you
in some.
actually, you just need to apply them in a structured way. So you have to document it. You have to have your framework. You have to have all of these things documented, and you have to train people, and you have to reinforce that, and you have to check as well, and you have to do audits and all these sorts of things. So that's part of your governance framework. And for whatever reason, Deloitte have fallen down here. And look, they're not the first organization to do this. We've seen a number of examples of like law firms doing something similar where they'll submit something to court and it has references and those references don't exist. So look, Deloitte are under the spotlight, but this applies to professional services generally.
Yeah, the thing here is the fact that you don't get any difference or change in behavior without making an example of somebody. I mean, and in this particular instance, I mean, yes, I mean, they should not be charging at all for the bloody report because, what have they done? It's been a scurrilous use of time, waste of time for everybody because they've had to go checking everything. So trust has gone. So is it just that they don't, sort of like get paid for this piece of work, or should they just be chucked off the panel for a short while until they get their house in order? Suspension of that kind of thing, so they're not taking revenues in between times, is something that they would probably pay attention to. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's my
absolutely.
thought.
Yeah. Well, look, I agree. There should be serious. I agree.
Yeah, and they're just trying to sort of sweep under the carpet. It's okay. We'll just give you a little bit of a refund against the
Yeah, yeah,
$442,000
yeah.
that we're going to charge you for
That's
this
right.
report. I
Yeah,
don't think that's sort of like going to cut it, but anyway, that's fine.
not good enough. No.
Okay, Robert, thanks ever so much. Yeah, thanks ever so much for that. I really appreciate the time and energy that goes into all of this stuff. That was Chat DPS, and thank you.